For our final session of Shop Talk TV, we have two speakers in the studio, Sam Knight, the CEO of SMG, and Daniel Torres Dwyer, who is co-host of the FMCG Guys podcast. The two of them are joined in conversation by Joe Laszlo, head of insights for Shop Talk.
Welcome to Shoptalk TV. I'm Joe Laszlo, head of content at Shoptalk. Thank you so much for being with me for a quick conversation on the most important things going on within retail media. Sam, Daniel, I think the best thing to do to kick off is to let you both introduce yourselves. Sam, you run an agency called SMG. Maybe talk a little bit about your background and SMG's origin story.
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much for inviting us to come on. I'm CEO of SMG. My background is actually from the brand side. I worked at Procter & Gamble for 10 years. I looked after the Gillette brand in Europe and in the UK. And then we started this business to try and fix the need of brands being able to advertise more in stores. And that was about 14 years ago. And since then, we've built a business that has a number of big retail media networks in the UK, the likes of Boots, Morrisons, Asda, alongside a buying business where we buy retail media on behalf of brands like Kellanova, and a technology layer which helps us to operate it all. So we've got a team of about 500 people based in the UK, and we're just expanding out here in the US now.
It's fantastic. Daniel, you work for FMCG Guys. Maybe say a quick word about what that is and the perspective, the vantage point it gives you on retail media.
Yeah, so basically my background is actually in recruitment in consumer goods and retail. So off the bat of that, I decided to create some content and started interviewing like basically my prospects. So senior people in consumer goods and retail. Now 4 years later, we've interviewed over 200 people, among them this gentleman as well, a couple of times. I think it gives us a great perspective on what's going on in the industry, both from the retailer side, the agency side, and obviously the brand side.
Yeah, excellent. Well, retail media has been very much a topic of conversation here at Shop Talk this go around on the New Market stage over there, amongst other places. What makes this an interesting moment in terms of retail media? Is there something particular like this year that marks a turning point or a tipping point in the industry?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think retail media has got a long history of coming from shopper marketing and now into a much more full funnel activation. But I think what's really changed in the past year is we've seen the technology advance. And so we're now able to take the loyalty card data and use that data to target across the full media ecosystem. And measure the impact, see whether people can come back and buy later too. So it's now no longer just a channel. It's like a red thread that runs through all of media buying. And as the cookie begins to deprecate, it allows brands to target more effectively and measure more effectively. And that's what's really driving the growth across everything that we're seeing.
Great perspective. So retail media is becoming part of media. Retail media is media.
Right.
Daniel, what about you? Any other things to add as far as what makes this a special moment for retail media?
I feel like retail media has just been like a catalyst that's really like transformed the retailer brand relationships and the retailers within and the brands within. So I feel like now within the whole debate that we have between performance and brand building in FMCG, CPG, the retail media is playing like a role in that as well. So I feel like the retail media networks, you know better, Sam, like before the retailer was speaking with the salespeople in the FMCG companies, and now they're more interested in the marketing folk, and that's coming at the same time where brand building is kind of coming back. So it's a very interesting time.
Yeah, it's so interesting to be here on the show floor in the New Market part of Shop Talk. We've got Sam's Club's MAP, the Sam's Club retail media has a booth over there, but NBC, like old school NBC, has a booth over there. So I think that blending of classically brand type marketing versus direct response, kind of driving a sale type marketing, is alive and well right at this second. Sam, talk a little bit about maybe some of the misconceptions that retailers have as they jump into this potentially lucrative new space, and maybe a little bit about how you guys help them navigate.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because I think there is a misconception that if you just have a piece of technology or you have on-site search or maybe some ad serving, that's a retail media network. In my opinion, that couldn't be further from the truth. I think good retail media networks sit at the very core of a retailer, and they help them to build their relationships with their brands, but they also help them to get their communication across and act as they want to in front of the consumer, and it needs to ultimately be consumer facing. And so building a retail media network is as much about structure, capability, talent as it is about the technology that enables it.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. I feel like some retailers may naively believe that the media business is easy relative to the retail business, and I feel like they very quickly realize that, that maybe it's not.
And they're so, you hear a lot of people say, retailers are the new publishers. I also think that's not necessarily true either, because retailers are far more complicated in the relationships they have with their consumers, with their brands, with the financial relationships they have together. And so they needed to be treated differently, and that takes a different approach.
Yeah, Daniel, I'm making an assumption that as an FMCG guy, you can think like an FMCG guy. What's the brand's perspective on this? Or is there excitement? Is there skepticism? Maybe a little bit of both as retail media sellers come knocking on their doors?
I feel like brands now have so many challenges, like private label. They kind of had like free growth after COVID due to consumer habits and also inflation. And now retail media is just an extra layer of that. But it's a great way to like re-engage with the consumer and become relevant. But I think they're like kind of working it out as well, and kind of like a pendulum between, again, sales, marketing, performance, brand building.
Sure. I mean, it's like everybody's trying to do a little bit of everything. NBC talks about how it can be bottom of funnel, and Sam's Club and all the other retail media networks talk about how they can be top of funnel. It's kind of like everybody, why are we even talking about a funnel anymore? Can't we just retire the funnel? Or should we? Maybe that's not right.
Well, I think the way that advertising has moved has changed so far that the funnel is a little bit irrelevant now. In the old days, when I was taught at P&G, you had your brand marketing and then you had your performance marketing. But that was because you couldn't buy something from a TV ad. That's changed now. Like you're on YouTube and you can click and buy straight away, and you can have that product all the time. So this kind of change between shopper behavior and consumer behavior no longer exists. And so because we're always buying, the funnel is just a big mess of different communication channels. And trying to find the right person on that journey is where the challenge is now.
Interesting. Daniel, do you have a POV on that?
Well, I'm curious to know from Sam's perspective as well, how do you see like FMCGs, CPGs like evolving in that, and like the CPG retailer relationship evolving?
Yeah, it's becoming,
especially, since your background in Procter & Gamble, you see like the two sides.
It's becoming much more integrated. And so you're now seeing the brand teams merge with the shopper teams, and you're starting to see retail media network activations show up on brand plans. And so there's a real consolidation of these two sides of the business, which is great for the brand because it means that they can look at it in one holistic campaign, but also brings up challenges for the retailers because they're used to having trade marketing as this consistent investment. It's now becoming much more discretionary, and brands are picking which retailers to invest in based on their media capabilities as much as their relationships. And that can be a great thing if you've got a really good retail media network that has great capabilities that drive sales. It'll also be a real challenge for the retailers that fall behind that.
Yep. I've been talking throughout this conversation kind of like it's like media versus retail media, and like media plans are kind of picking one over the other. But really, there are many, many examples of collaborations between the media space and the retail space as retailers bring their first party data and media companies bring their audiences and their amazing kind of content capabilities. How do you see synergies shaping up there in the next year or two?
I think you're seeing a lot more partnerships happening across the board. So in some of the development that we've had in our partner with Boots, we're now able to invest in CTV in Channel 4 in the UK, in ITV, as easy as we can buy off-site digital media. But then we're also starting to see this real interesting collaboration between different types of commerce platforms on that journey. So we've just launched WH Smith Media in the US, which is a travel retailer.
Sure. Yep.
And there's some really interesting, exactly at the airports and casinos, really interesting opportunities to partner with people like United Airlines or Uber, who have interesting data sets which you can link together through clean rooms. And then that becomes a full media journey as you go to the airport, be in the airport, get on the plane, and on the other side. That opens up some really interesting partnership opportunities, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because like a lot of retailers, like grocery still online is like quite a small proportion of the sales, but then you have like perfumeries, fashion, etc., where you have like a larger percentage of online sales, and they haven't really developed their retail media networks, and that could be like a huge opportunity for CPGs to advertise there. It's like makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Last question, as we're just about out of time, but a quick hit. If if we all meet again, if we're fortunate and well, and we're back here in Vegas next year in the new market on Shoptalk TV talking about retail media, what's something you see happening in the next year that we'll be wanting to talk about come next March?
Do you want to go first?
Wow, I think.
Give me time to think.
Yeah, no, I think there'll be like, I think that this brand, that's retailer speaking to marketing, will be much more together. I think we're seeing like the beginning of that, and I think we'll see much more of that, and we'll also
Tighter.
see like technology really advancing and merging, between retailer and like, activations on Netflix
Yeah.
and closing that loop.
Somebody just asked me if I thought a retailer was going to buy a media company or vice versa. And I mean, there's been rumors around like the edges of Apple, which is already half media company anyway, and certainly lots of partnerships, Kroger, Disney, and stuff. But I think how those collaborations evolve, whether they get to the point of somebody buying somebody or not, I totally agree with you. It's going to be super interesting.
Yeah.
Sam, last prediction for next
I think
year?
for me, it'll be a continuation of this kind of thing that we first started talking about, the red thread. I think we'll stop talking about retail media as a thing.
Yeah.
In the same way we stopped talking about digital as a thing. And it will just become part of the media mix that we start to develop. We have to treat it in different ways, and we'll have to learn different ways of analyzing it, but it will become much more integrated in total media plans, both from a brand and a retailer side.
Yeah, one of our speakers on day one of the show gave a presentation titled "Retail Media is the New Media." Yeah. It just kind of depends on which comes first in the order, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly right.
Anyways, thank you both so much for joining me on Shoptalk TV. This has been a very brisk conversation, but we covered a lot of ground, and I really appreciate it. And I do hope we get to be on stage again together next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank
Cheers.
you.